All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell, and of course, upvote the video itself and participate in the conversation by commenting down below. I'm here with Pratt Rogers, here for his weekly segment on Ole Miss football. And we're going to say Ole Miss football now because we're kind of going to go down memory lane and figure out who his top players in history are, his top moments in history. And we're going to talk to him a little bit at the end about baseball because that's something he wasn't expecting, and I just kind of surprised him with it. How you doing, Pratt?
Throwing me a pun like a curveball already. How about that?
Yeah. I figured we could do that at this point.
Yeah. Well, good. All is good here. What's been going on with y'all? It sounds like y'all are staying busy.
Yeah, we're staying pretty busy. This week I've got interviews with John Garcia and Jason Jordan about recruiting in basketball and football. I've got an interview with, that I've got to set up with Bill Flowers talking about football. I've got
man, is he knowledgeable in what?
Yeah, he's great. He's the best. He spent all week saying this offense has a problem, or all year going through the first half, and everybody got mad about him saying this offense is a problem. Yeah. And then at the end of the season, I'm just going to bring him on and let him take a victory lap, honestly.
He deserves more than that.
Yeah. And I've got somebody that wants to come on and talk about women's basketball and kind of be the U for women's basketball. And Tim Thomas is going to talk men's basketball. I've got a busy week of interviews this week. I mean, I probably have 8 or 9 people to interview, and that's not even including Derek and Kara. And Kara's going to come back this week. So it's going to be crazy.
Man, well, good. I appreciate you squeezing me in. It sounds like y'all are rocking and rolling.
Yeah, it's hit that off-season time. We're going to do a lot of guests. We're going to do a lot of different stuff. That's just the way the channel goes. During football season, we're football. We're all about it all the time. But whenever you get to other stuff in the later part of the year, in January, February, and March, you have time to do a little bit of tinkering, I think.
Well, no, I agree. And Stephen, honestly, the way the portal is now, football is really almost 365 days now, except for really the gap we're in, this 2-week gap. Coaches have kind of started going on vacation, stuff like that. Not as many recruiting visits right now. I feel like it's almost like a small kind of dead period where Kiffin and Co can sit back and catch their breath a little bit, I feel like.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is. And, with the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the actual main podcast, there's going to be a football segment in every show. I mean, that's part of our deal is we're going to cover football year round, whether other people want to or not. It just doesn't matter. But you're right. Yeah, you're right. Kiffin and everybody taking a little bit of break, a little bit of a recharge because they're going to hit these 2024s, and we're talking about them on tomorrow's show, very, very hard. And they need to recharge. They need to do what they need to do. But February 15th or 16th is kind of full speed ahead on recruiting and starting to plan for spring practice, which at that point is like a month away.
No doubt. And as we've talked about in the past, the 2024 class being so loaded as it is, I'm kind of glad to hear they'll be hitting the ground running early, we hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, since we're going to reminisce a little bit on today's show, let's start off with the top players that you remember in your lifetime. Who are the top players that Pratt Rogers have seen in his lifetime?
Well, Stephen, it was a super loaded assignment, I will say. I thank you for putting me on the spot, but I put together kind of a down and dirty list of individuals that I thought just over the last 29 years of my life really epitomized the Ole Miss uniform. Unfortunately, when putting this list together, I quickly realized I had a very offensive bias.
Wait, back up. 29. You were born in the 90s?
I was born in 93. Yeah.
Oh my God. I was playing my senior year of high school football in 93.
Man, I'm sorry. Yeah, that wasn't a shot. I'm sorry. Yeah. Anyway, I was born in 93. I'm 29. But yeah, anyway, that's where I was going with this. I quickly realized that I don't know if it's just lack of defensive players over almost a 3-decade span or my affinity for offensive players, but there was not a lot of defensive momentum on this list, to say the least.
Well, this is your list. You can do whatever you want to do. What is Pratt Rogers' list of top players that come to mind over the past 29 years?
Well, a personal favorite player ever was, I just got to go A.J. Brown. He may not have been the most impactful or the biggest player in Ole Miss history or anything like that, but the way he carried himself coming out of Starkville, so much swag. I mean, and he was just a baller. I am shocked there's not a statue for A.J. Brown on campus already. But I think he has got to be my all-time favorite player. Probably kind of a wild card player on my top 10 list, I'd say, that most people may not put in there is Mike Espy. And I liked Mike Espy a lot. And Dad and I used to always make a running joke. He would never call fair catch. I mean, he just had stones. He was like an awesome kick returner, and Ole Miss never has a great kick or punt returner. And anyway, on special teams, I loved his enthusiasm. You know, he was very courageous. I'll put it that way. Very few fair catches in his Ole Miss career, but obviously you've got the greats like Treadwell, Chad Kelly, Matt Corral in recent bias, obviously. You got to throw Eli Manning in there, no doubter. But, maybe somebody like I was young, but Deuce McAllister's got to be up there for a lot of people. Steven, you could probably
You make me feel very old.
Sorry. You could probably echo on Deuce a little bit more than I could.
Yeah, Deuce is actually, believe it or not, he's a little bit younger than me, but he is the running back before Quinshawn that was the pure SEC level running back. Ole Miss has never really had that guy. They had Ben Jarvis and Dexter and some good players, but the big SEC style running back, Deuce McAllister, was really the first one that happened in my lifetime. And I remember guys like Willie Goodlow, even like Buford McGee was a little bit before my time. But whenever you look at the running back position up until Quinshawn, Deuce McAllister is the other guy that stands out.
No doubt. I would 100% agree with that. And I think he automatically cracks the list just based off of scarcity at the running back position over a 3-decade run. Ole Miss just hadn't really had that dude, at running back. And recently, up until Quinshawn. So, yeah, super, super exciting list of guys I put together that I thought would be a really cool fit and really epitomize what Ole Miss stands for.
Okay. Anybody else on that list?
You mentioned Dexter McCluster. I'd add him on there. He'd be in there. Anybody I'm missing in your lifetime that you'd tack on?
I would put Patrick Willis on the list.
Patrick Willis was on there. I did forget. He was my one defensive player. I can't forget Patrick.
As a current Willis, Patrick, I have to look out for P. Willie. No
doubt.
And he was at Ole Miss when I was there, so we were actually in the building at the same time. Really interesting. I got to see a conversation. This is a behind the scenes thing that P. Willie would absolutely attest to. But before Ole Miss played LSU with that infamous hit to where he lifted the running back off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before that game, him and Sean Slocum, the linebackers coach, was almost arguing to where P. Willie said, you can't really do a form tackle. A form tackle can't be really successful because the running back has the advantage at all times in that. So you're going to go back. So then he has that and he lifts him up in a perfect form tackle and just completely disproves his argument. It was pretty good. But that did happen. Yeah, that absolutely did happen.
Yeah, typically you would think the running back's momentum is taking you forward, is what P. Willie was arguing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have enough force going forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, he just picked Justin Vincent up and is like, man. The funny thing is Justin Vincent got the first, it was a 4th and 1, but he got the first down on that play. Everybody yeah, it was a 4th and 1. Justin Vincent did get the first down, but everybody remembers that tackle.
4th and 1, but I did not remember him getting the first down.
He got the first down.
Wow, that's classic Ole Miss football fashion. Then.
Okay, let's turn the page a little bit. In the
Sure.
29 years of Pratt Rogers' life, good grief, I'm old. So we're going to move on to top moments. What are your top moments that stand out in Ole Miss history?
I mean, I think everybody, even if it's a 50-year run, I don't care. It's got to be beating Bama twice. It's got to be up there for you, no matter what. If you're putting together a list of top 7, those are top 7 moments or so. Those are probably 1 and 2. I mean, you got to imagine those are 1 and 2 for everybody. Probably winning at home was probably number 1 for me. Just being at that game, watching the goalpost come down. I mean, being on the field, all that was just pretty surreal. So that would be number 1 for me. Probably number 2 would be at Bama. I put number 3 kind of an interesting one. I put beating Florida with Tebow. And really, that was such a great game, obviously. But really what stood out to me in that game was the speech that Tebow gave after the game that everybody remembers, that you will never find somebody who works harder than me. I will go lead this team, all that. And that just went so viral that it's hard to not add that in your list. Up there for me too is beating State 45-0. I mean, that's probably just a petty mention for me in the 2008 Egg Bowl, but
genuinely felt bad for Tyson Lee in that game and Wesley Carroll, those quarterbacks. Just literally, the quarterbacks didn't have a chance for State that day.
Yeah, I actually, you've got a great memory. I remember discussing that exact same thing that day, and guys, I mean, somebody's got to call this game or get him out of there. That was kind of a blood.
Yeah, it's almost like Rocky IV when the trainer was like, "Throw in the damn towel."
Yeah.
The Apollo. So that's what that reminded me of.
Throw the towel. Yeah, no doubt. Got to be up there. Beating LSU with Ritter, with Andrew Ritter hit that
2013.
Yeah, 2013. I think it was a 41-yard field goal. That was
a lot of people might not remember, but we had 6 or 7 players out that day. We were playing with bare bones and was able to win that game.
And most of them were, if I remember correctly, I think 5 were defensive starters or something like that, Steve. And I can't remember the exact details.
That was the game where Chief Brown got an interception or something in the end zone. He actually had a big play at a free safety. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Chief a lot. Yeah, I remember him. He's a Jackson, Mississippi guy, if I remember correctly, too. Also, rounding out the list, you got to think the Sugar Bowl beating Oklahoma State. I think that was, 2016?
There's the 2016 Sugar Bowl, 2015 season. And to me, that would be number 1 just because of what it meant.
I thought the play of the game on that one was the kind of when Chad Kelly rolls right and kind of throws that toss, or that, I guess you'd even call it a screen back to Tunzel, and Tunzel trots into the end zone. One of the most legendary calls by David Kellum. I distinctly remember he said, and the big man runs into the end zone. It's Laramie Tunzel, and that sealed the game. It was over at that point. But that was just.
For me in that game, Jordan Wilkins. For me in that game, Jordan Wilkins had a 40-yard touchdown run that kind of just put it away. It's over, garbage time.
Yeah.
That kind of was the play because Jordan Wilkins was kind of big boying Oklahoma State on that run. I really like that.
Yeah, Jordan Wilkins is great too. That, and finally, probably my last one on my top 7 or so would be the 2014 Egg Bowl. State came in 10-1. I think they were the number 4 team in the nation, and we obviously came out with the W in that one. And that we probably never would have heard the end of that if State had been 11-1 at that point. That was probably more sigh of relief than actual joyousness at Oxford.
It was their chance to actually go to a Sugar Bowl because I don't think if they'd have won that game, they'd have made the playoff, but they would have been the highest ranking SEC team not in the playoffs, which means they would go to New Orleans. That would have been their first Sugar Bowl. So on top of everything else, the meaning and all that, it was an absolutely massive choke jog by the Mississippi State Bulldogs just because of that reason. I just remember Jalen Walton and his 92-yard touchdown run. And
Unbelievable.
And Cody Core like jogging beside him. Jalen Walton's running as fast as he can. Core's just like jogging down the field, escorting him to the end zone. I'll never forget that.
I had a management class with Jalen Walton in college, and I remember, I guess it was like after the holidays, we all came back to class, and everybody just gave him a big hug in class. And it's like, dude, you're the man. Way to go. Way to put the team on your back. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Real quick, we're going to need to change the subject real quick before we get out of here. Baseball season starts in about a week and a half. And what are you looking forward to for this team that is going to defend their national championship? You can say defending national champions for about the next 4 months. So we're going to say that for the next 4 months. And what's going on? Yeah, on repeat. What are you looking forward to in this baseball season?
I think really I'll be interested to see who steps up as a leader. I mean, you got guys like Elko gone, who had played a lot of baseball. And I think who can step up? I think there's a lot of depth on this team, maybe a little concern on pitching, but really who can step up and say, hey, look, I've seen a lot of at-bats. I've been a part of this team for a long time. Who can step up and be a leader for the team and kind of replace that Elko role? Because I think the at-bats will be there. The hits will be there for these guys. We've got a great baseball team, but I'm probably looking at it more from a chemistry perspective of who can step up and really replace all the intangibles that a guy like Elko was. And I have no idea who that is right now. You may have a better idea than I do, Stephen, but I think that's an important part of a championship team is kind of mental toughness and leadership.
Yeah, there's some transfers that they brought in. I don't know if these names are absolutely correct. So if I get them wrong, nobody bury me for it. But I think his name's Anthony Calarco. He's a transfer from Northwestern. Ethan Graf in center field. And those two positions, that is probably the person they're trying to recreate a little bit of what Kevin Graham did, actually. And then in center field, I'm sorry if I pronounced his last name wrong. That's the Justin Bench person. The Elko thing, I think, is going to be like a Kemp Alderman or even a Taiwan Malone. That's where that is probably going to be. It'll be real interesting to see, but it's got to the point where Malone is on the top 5 list of exit velocities every inter-squad game. So I'm really interested to see what he can do because he's also, this is a big year for him because he has a chance to have a decent role on the baseball team, but he's also in line to take one of those 5 technique spots on the defensive line for the Rebs. So I imagine he's going to do some spring practice and they're going to be doing some dancing in March and April.
I know. You almost feel bad for the guy for being such a great athlete that he has to choose where he wants to spend his time. I would love to see him ball out on the football field this year, but the way he's been hitting the ball recently with that 3 home run game, it'd be almost impossible to take his bat out of the lineup. So I'd be interested to see what happens with him, but I agree, definitely can hopefully take a big leadership step this year.
Exactly. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you check out our brand new podcast. And it's a podcast that could be quite relevant to Ole Miss fans in about 90 days or 30 days or 60 days or somewhere in there. It's called Locked On College Basketball. It's got everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, you can hear from big-name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. So if there's a coaching search happening, this is probably going to be a place to turn. So it's Locked On College Basketball. It's available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Anyway, Pratt, thank you so much for stopping by today. You're basically going to be a standalone. I've got so many interviews that I'm going to have to pitch them out again like last week. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you a lot, man, for coming by here today.
Yeah, kind of you to have me, man. In Lane we trust. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy, bud. Thanks.